Heyo, welcome to the audio commentary for Sparrows Sing of Dying, Book 2 in the Tides That Rain saga. I'm author Artie Pires here to highlight some of my favorite aspects of writing this novel, as well as share some behind-the-scenes bits. There are spoilers ahead, so please do not listen to this commentary until after you've read the book. So without further ado, let's take flight. Chapter 1. Grey Life, Jade Death. In opening Book 2, I wanted to quickly show how this installment was going to be vastly different from the one that came before it. Design of Darkness opened with Mariana in frenetic action with fire and danger and peril, whereas Sparrows Sing of Dying is the opposite. We find Arsenio midway through his journey, in water, calm and reflecting about the events that have led him here. It's always tempting to open a book with an action sequence to get the reader hooked, but I was hoping to already have the trust of a reader coming back for seconds to know that the action will happen, but we need space for existing too. This scene also has one of my favorite subtle world-building bits, learning about the mythology behind the fusei trees. That folks believe writing the fallen blossoms make them spirit homes, and that the grateful spirits will then grant to the person whatever they're thinking about at the time. This bit of mythology comes back a few times throughout the series, but it's subtle enough that the reader might not notice it happening. It's just something I liked in the background. And then finally, we get our introduction to the Jade Dagger. I'm not supposed to play favorites as an author, but she is top 3 for me. The Tides That Rain would not be what it is without the Jade Dagger. I really liked the idea of having this entire book where she is so present, but she doesn't actually become a character until Book 2. So by the time the reader meets her, there's this whole mythos surrounding who she is and what she means for different people within the world. Picking up with Helena again, I really wanted to give the sense that this was not the same book as Design of Darkness. Now that we are out of the setup, the pace is much quicker. As with Book 1, opening sequences are tricky to get right. This one is probably the most rewritten scene in this book. Initially, Jacinta and Helena resurrect Emilio, and it becomes this frantic escape to get him clothing and food before leaving the Quartz Basilica. The encounter with Ingana happened in the kitchen, as Helena is trying to steal bread for their journey down the mountain. That ultimately felt too claustrophobic and cumbersome. Helena might be impulsive, but Jacinta is intelligent. She's an organized woman who has been infiltrating the Holy Order for years, so the scene needed to change to stay true to her character. Instead, it became a planned escape for which they'd prepared. Jacinta intends to run away with them, but she's waylaid by Ingana beneath the Basilica Dome under the watchful eyes of Deus, which makes for a more dramatic scene, in my opinion. Chapter 2. The Jasmine House. We've made it to the Jasmine House, the most important new location in Book 2. I talked in the commentary for the last book about how it's difficult to determine what came first when developing a novel, but I think the concept for Rosalind and the Jasmine House might actually be the first piece of the Tides That Rain to enter existence. I wrote a song from the perspective of a character who was trapped in this house that was keeping her eternally alive. She kept having to say goodbye to people who would come and live with her for a while, but eventually everyone left to live out the rest of their years. At the time, the concept and the character were completely detached from a greater story, but once I started developing the world for the Tides That Rain and the outline fell into place, the character in the song became Rosalind. Chapter 3. The Battle of Chiro. Now we come to the first major battle in the Tides That Rain, which was, incidentally, the first epic battle sequence I had ever written. Prior to the Battle of Chiro, I'd written many action sequences, of course, but not fight sequences to the scale that I was imagining. So to get a sense for the atmosphere, the visuals, the feel, I watched a handful of battles from media that represented what I was going for, namely Battle of the Bastards from Season 6 of Game of Thrones, Crossing No Man's Land in 1917, and Omaha Beach from Saving Private Ryan. Some epic battle sequences are sort of sweeping, giving a zoomed out view of the action that's nearly as poetic in its grandiosity, but I wanted something more frenetic, close in almost to the point of being claustrophobic. We get the battle mainly from Coyote's point of view since he's in it, whereas Arsenio is skirting around the outside. So with Coyote, who is not a fighter by nature, I wanted to hone in on the chaos and just everything being stripped away in his effort to survive. Yet through it all, he is still Coyote. He kills someone out of necessity, and his first instinct is still, I hope someone gives them a proper burial. I wrote his segments a handful of times, trying to capture that essence. There were very few changes to the sequence of events, but sentence length, simpler words with hard sounds, reckless pace, they all contribute to what I hope is a very pulse-pounding battle of Chiro. In the Design of Darkness commentary, I also touched on word count being a constant consideration, at least in the beginning for these books. The way I outlined the series was as one cohesive story from start to finish that I then went back through and chose spots to split the books. Originally, The Tides That Rain was supposed to be a trilogy, with the first book ending after Fogosombre's death at the conclusion of the Battle of Chiro. But as I was writing Design of Darkness, it was clear I would never be able to reach that point in the outline, while keeping the manuscript under 120,000 words to abide by traditional publishing conventions. I instead chose to end book one on the cliffhanger of sorts, with Ysel calling for Nakara to go to battle with her against Fogosombre, and Kaori taking control of his decisions. The idea then was that this middle book would encompass what became books 2 and 3, but again, even with the accelerated pace, I realized I would not get through all the necessary material without the middle book being about 350,000 words, which, let's be real, nobody would want from me. So somehow the Battle of Chiro became the midpoint of Sparrows Sing of Dying, around which the novel pivots from war buildup to political drama. Lastly, in this mammoth chapter, we get the Jade Daggers face-off with Fogosombre, which was actually a smoother segment to write in comparison to the Battle of Chiro. At the risk of plagiarism allegations, the Jade Dagger, or Midori as we soon come to know her, was born from my love of wuxia films. And I'm going to butcher this name, so please bear with me. In particular, the works of Zhang Zi as Xiaomei in House of Flying Daggers and Moon in Hero, which I've seen countless times. So I always really enjoy writing her action sequences, since the fluidity and the cadence of her movements are so familiar to me.